And you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast, where, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but it's not limited to, what's poppin', hun? How you feeling today?
Doing well. How are you doing, comrade?
I'm chilling. Another day in the life, you know, we're here on the pod.
Been a couple weeks since we had me on. I guess you guys enjoyed a week off.
Yeah, well, you know, we sometimes need a week off, and what perfect time in the
Should've
middle of
taken
August. We should have, honestly.
Definitely should have taken
It's the middle of August. There ain't shit going on.
Yeah.
It's already fucking Thursday, man.
There really isn't anything going on, man. It's like if you're here in Vegas and you're trying to, I don't know, play live or play online or whatever, like they're running an online series, but they're barely meeting guarantees and stuff. Like nothing's happening.
Live, it's going to pick up a little bit. I think there's some stuff coming out the wind for the next month.
Wait, what?
And Venetian.
What is the, speaking of the Venetian, we'll get to that in a moment, but what's the online series right now for
It's just a
WSOP?
bunch of like ring events. Like
okay.
Today they have like a 320 double stack or something. And yeah, like I say, they're only barely meeting the guarantees. And it's not that they're bad events or whatever, but like, you know, they're just not big.
I feel like the online circuits.
Mega circuit.
That's what it is. Yeah.
They run 4 of those a year, right?
No.
They seem to run infinite.
No, they run infinite circuit events, but the mega circuits,
I have no idea.
I think, are
but
something
like,
different.
I think the idea is that all the prize pools are guaranteed at least 100K minimum or around there, like
Right.
75K minimum or something.
Yeah, I think.
They're still good tournaments. Like,
I think COVID was a little misleading for how popular the online ring events are,
right.
because they were massive. It was
COVID
just like
just awesome.
the run of 215, and it would be like 60K to first.
Mhm.
But man, post COVID, not so much. Now you're well, it's just like live, you know, you win a ring and 8K. Then you get a tiny little free roll at the end. Speaking of the Venetian, we have another engagement going on this Friday. Jamin Burton and I believe Pokerface Ash are going to be hosting a meetup game. This could just be a Jamin. Oh, it says and friends.
I saw.
No,
I
it's-
I know
saw
Ash is here.
Yeah, it's
I
Jamin.
saw
It's
Ash
Jamin
posting
and
on
Ash.
Instagram. about
Okay,
something.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Jamin and Ash.
Okay, yeah, it is Ash.
You're right.
She's tagged. Okay. So this is going to start at 1 p.m. on Friday, 1335. Special giveaways probably every hour on the hour. Be sure to show up. Don't forget that they're now offering $3 an hour, I believe, in comps, if I got that right. Also, if you guys, and Hunt, you could probably speak to this more than I can, if you guys are interested in an ICM Masterclass, GTO Wizards hosting one beginning tomorrow. There are 5 elite coaches. This is led by Kevin Rabichow specifically. A few seats are remaining. If you want to learn how to play the most critical spots in poker tournaments from some of the game's top players and coaches, don't tank on this decision. Register now. I think that today's the last day to get into this one. So
Yeah, it starts tomorrow.
yeah, be sure to check it out if you're interested.
I was supposed to plug that in my recent coaching for Wizard. Like they contacted me like an hour beforehand. Like, make sure you mention the masterclass during the coaching, and I just completely forgot.
Yeah. I was supposed to mention this yesterday, not today. But
Yeah, everyone's forgetting to plug it for them, but it's going to be great, I'm sure. I mean, obviously K-Rab is a great coach and probably one of the best experts to kind of learn from in that regard. They didn't ask me to be part of it, but I guess that's probably just because I'm putting out a bunch of content for them already. It's going to be interesting to see them get on board guys like BBZ and a couple other coaches that aren't. They're not really kind of already part of the Wizard roster. They're sort of bringing in some guest coaches and stuff, so it should be really good.
it's kind of crazy to see K-Rab's trajectory. Like just 2019, he decided I like tournaments now. And
Well, he went from heads up to tournaments, right? Is that what he did? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's not an unnatural evolution, given that if you're a really good heads up player, it's going to definitely make a big impact on your tournament bottom line, you know? So probably puts that heads up skill set into practice at least sometimes.
Yeah. I wonder how much translation there is though, because there's such a stark difference between like a heads up sit and go player versus a heads up cash player.
Yeah, that's
the
very true.
variable stack depths, the antes.
K-Rab played cash, not sit and goes.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know too much about his exact background, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of skills that you have to learn independently, but it might just be one of those things where a lot of it wouldn't surprise me if the heads-up online cash environment just kind of dried up at a certain point, and
I think that's true for pretty much everybody that went that route.
Yeah, and I would imagine that there's a decent chance that guys who made that transition, like K-Rab did, just did it because MTTs were like the one area that's never going to dry up.
Sort of feels like, I mean, anyone that's really good at one form of poker can probably get pretty good at other forms of poker.
Yeah,
at least in like the no limit realm.
Depends on how they got good.
Like someone good at cash, like look at someone like Barack Wisbrod, like one of the best cash guys, like plays high stakes tournaments, still really good at tournaments. Like they just know how to think about poker very well.
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of move.
How he got good though is probably pretty specific to being able to make that transition. I think you'd see it less likely, like a guy like, this is no shot at him, and I think with enough time and energy, if he were incentivized to do it, he could get good at tournaments. But a guy like Roble isn't just going to be very good at tournaments. And it's not because he lacks the foundational knowledge. It's just more so that he's so skilled in the arena that he's in, and so much of that is due to reps and experience. Like, I'm sure he studies also.
It's less reps nowadays, right? When it comes to just like improvement.
Well, that's my point, is that he didn't come up that same way, right?
Now
he didn't come up drilling the trainer and doing all that stuff. It was more so like feel it out, come up with a bunch of ideas, test set ideas.
Like,
well, not necessarily, but like, more so like I've been practicing this idea over time and it seems to have a lot of merit, right? Like that was our methodology.
And now it's more like rooted in principle.
Yeah.
Like you look at the solver, you see a bunch of things that are relatively the same over different board textures of like what combos and candidates want to bet or check.
Right. Instead of recognizing patterns through your opponents, you're more so recognizing patterns through the outputs.
Right.
But even still, it's like, Andrew's in his late 30s, has 9 figures from poker. I don't know that he's really out there slaving on the whiz.
Doubt it.
Day over day.
He's got kids and shit.
Right, and he's also busy flying to like Dubai to play some Saudi prince in a 1K, 2K game.
He's kind of a unicorn though, poker wise, right? Because I don't think there's anybody else that is in that category where they're genuinely really good at poker, but they also have access to all those games,
right?
And the ability to play. Like most of his volume is coming against other players who are not that good.
Yeah, that's true.
He might be the only player on the planet who has access to that level of high stakes, but is also that genuinely good at poker.
Right.
Like it's just it's a one-off,
Yeah, I'm not taking any offense to this at all.
I mean, he plays,
no, I'm fucking with you.
he plays higher stakes than you, though. That's
much.
Like, I mean, you're not
higher.
in Dubai. Like,
Maybe.
If you jet off to Dubai anytime soon, I'll put you and Roble in the same category.
All right, well, don't hold your fucking breath.
Yeah, I'm not expecting you to leave the US anytime soon.
No. I'm saying the opposite.
You might have to put him in the category.
I'm saying the opposite.
Are we breaking some news here?
No. But there are games popping up more so in Cyprus and Dubai and places
Cyprus,
like that.
Okay, all right.
That you may leave the house for.
I might leave the house for. It's kind of worth it. But no, I think there are a lot of people that fall into that camp that don't necessarily transition well in spite of the fact of being great poker players. Like Andy Stacks comes to mind. Mm-hmm. Garrett comes to mind. Like,
less principled in theory, more like I'm just going to beat this guy and figure it out and do reps that way.
Kind of. I think that they're principled in theory, but I also think that those principles are like they're at the forefront of their decision-making process, but that decision-making process is always also very like run through the filter of live deep stack cash.
I guess where I'm going with this is when it comes to like rooted in theory versus not is, did they get better at poker by playing a bunch of hands against the trainer? And I would guess probably not.
That was what I was saying.
I'm agreeing with that.
Yeah.
But
that's why I was saying
days,
right. That's why I was saying like the person who is elite at the toughest form of competitions, whatever that may be, if they've risen through the ranks, whatever their discipline may be, and they're youngish, then yeah, they'll transfer into anything.
Right.
For sure.
Like just someone that loses their game that they play most of the time, like most of the stuff that causes swing, like or change happens because there's no more game left, I guess, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
nowadays it's easier to find the path, as well as like if you're already at the top of your game, you're probably talking to some people that are at the top of the other game. It's like, hey, I'm trying to play tournaments, and like, you're pretty smart.
Right.
Okay, like whatever you need.
And look, don't get me wrong. Every name that I've mentioned, like if the incentive swung and that was the path that they had to go in order to compete, they'd all be great. It would just take a little bit more time, I think.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it's like the Roble is so unique in terms of because he runs a bunch of the games, right? Or like he sets up a lot of the games. So like he has those opportunities because of the skill set that he's built in doing that. And I think a lot of the time and energy that a lot of these other players have had to spend just getting better and better at poker to improve the win rate in the games that they actually have access to. He's almost been able to like jump past that by building that skill set of like, well, I'm just going to build the game itself and I can just play and get better through playing, and I'm going to gain extra EV just by, being able to play higher stakes than anybody else is playing against a bunch of recreationals.
Networking is the biggest plus EV thing you can do in poker.
I think. It's
Especially
probably
in the cash world when things get to like a certain stakes where everything goes private.
Right. That's kind of why I play tournaments, because I hate having to do that. Like I don't want to have to network. I want to just be able to show up, pay my money, and sit down. So like tournaments are nice for that, But even then, you have to be able to sell action and stuff like that. So like I couldn't make the transition, or at least I would really not enjoy making the transition, because I really don't. I just don't enjoy having to like network and like pretend I like someone when I actually don't and shit like that.
I mean, not that far.
I mean, isn't that what networking is? Like you're just like it's like, oh, I kind of need to get to know this guy. I don't really like him or have anything in common with him, but like I need him to like me, so I get an invite. And that's just networking, business, poker, whatever.
Not exactly.
I think it's probably more putting
It doesn't have to be that way.
I mean, maybe I'm being very cynical, but like that's what networking is for me. It's like talking to a bunch of people I would never normally talk to because it helps my career.
But I like these people.
Yeah. Well, what happens when you just generally don't like people like me? Like if you don't want to actually hang out and talk to people, like, and you have to do it. Now play tournaments. Exactly. All the antisocial people like me play tournaments.
No, I'm like you. I just give enough action where I don't have to be nice to them.
It's true. Okay. Very good point.
Become the enemy. Everybody needs to target the shit.
You got to like go in there and have them dislike you enough.
Yeah. Why recruit whales? Action. Why recruit whales if you could just be the whale?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's next level. We're playing 4D chess over here.
I mean,
that's how you get to Dubai.
Speaking of whales, we've got this whole fish conversation going on. Like fish, whale. Like what level of like sea creature do you want to be described as?
So today's Strat chat will be all about utilizing proper terminology when speaking about recreational players at the table, optional players, if you will.
Oh my God.
I liked a couple weeks ago you were talking about a player as being like the kind of player you put in a 10th seat for, like
pull up a 10th chair.
This player's a real 10th chair. Like I kind of like that, that's very subtle.
It's good.
Like if a rec player hears that, they don't know exactly what it means, but a pro is going to know what that means.
Yeah.
I like that.
It could just mean they give action.
Yeah, could be.
Could be good.
They could have a noir card.
Look, they're 100% pulling up a 10th chair for Berkey.
That's facts.
So
that's
when
happened.
It comes down to it.
That has actually happened.
It could just be they give action.
You voluntarily played 10-handed?
I do it quite frequently, to be honest. It's a notable difference. How much the game changes action-wise, just putting in that 10th chair.
We've all played those. Well, I mean, maybe you haven't, but we've all played those WSOP 1Ks and 500s where they make it 10-handed and everyone wants to kill themselves.
There was a Planet Hollywood one.
11-handed.
11-handed. Yeah.
I was lucky. I remember playing that tournament when it happened, but I didn't have to play 11-handed, and I was so grateful for that. I just couldn't have imagined how uncomfortable it would be just sitting there with 10 guys around me and the dealer. Like,
I think that was Christian's last tournament, actually. He had enough.
He just quit completely forever after that.
Just like, I'm pretty sure that
I don't blame him.
they cap cash at 8. So this is it for me.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, the terminology discussion is actually an interesting one, in spite of it being a bit of a meme. Mainly because I think that it brings up a side conversation as far as how we publicly present, not just as individuals, but also as like a collective community.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, like a lot of us came up in the early 2000s where this was very much on par with like early gaming community days. You know, I can remember the chat. God, if you guys had access to the chat, like party poker chat from 2005.
It's just the COD scene when I was in high school, man.
Yeah, it was an ugly
Everyone's
scene.
toxic as hell. Everyone says that they can like beat each other. Everyone says that they can do a lot of things that you don't want to say on air.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan O'Brien's favorite line was, I hope your luck runs out on the highway.
Sure. That's a polite way of putting it, though.
That's also a good one because there's no words in there that are gonna like get filtered out by the chat. Like,
Buddy,
there's
there were no filters.
Okay, but
Well, I caught some heat on there.
Yeah, right. But like, there's nothing. There's nothing that's actually a curse word that anybody's going to pick up on that could filter that out.
Right,
Like, it's
yeah.
still a pretty good insult.
Yeah, there was a lot of them. I remember. Oh man, it was bad.
It's pretty similar to when I told Nikki I hope she stubs her toe.
Right.
That's a good one. Every time you guys say that always makes me laugh.
I do kind of get a kick out of that as a running joke. It's very British of you, right? Hunt can confirm this is the meanest they can be.
It's not sophisticated enough to be British.
That's fair. Let me rephrase. Very Canadian of you.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually does sound very Canadian. It's like the kind of thing that a very nice Canadian person would say when they want to be deeply insulting to you.
I hope you stub your toes.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
I hope
so
you have to deal with the most minor inconvenience.
Right. So for anyone who's not sure what we're talking about, Tiffany Michelle posted a hand history with video attached on Twitter the other day from the Arizona State Championship, I believe. It was the end of day 1A, I think, where she had the ability to play again. And the hand history read as such: did I punt this stone cold bubble? Where basically she put in parentheses bag, because after this hand they were going to bag. Hand for hand at the end of a 12-hour day, new to the table and inactive plus respected.
Respected?
Wait, did this get
does that mean?
changed? Did this get edited? I'm very confused. I feel like that got added where it used to say fish.
I mean, isn't the whole point of this that it says fish somewhere in the post?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, it says big blind fish flats.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
Okay. I gotcha. Okay, so she's talking about somebody else. Yeah. New to table and inactive plus respected. Oh, I think she's talking about her own image.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Wow, this gets more bold by the second.
I am respected.
Incredible.
My table has great respect for me.
She says, I'm unenthused I'm unenthused about bagging 15 big blinds for the day when I can fire one more flight tomorrow. This is funny. We literally just talked about this yesterday about like how much EV is attached to putting any chips in the bag. Mm-hmm. Like back in the day, there used to be a discussion of like, oh, I bagged 5 big blinds. Should I just abandon my stack or re-enter? But now it's like, that would be an insane torch because we just know better. So she says, I'm in raised A7 of hearts in middle position. Gotta say, if you don't care about bagging, I would just rip. But anyway, big blind fish
if
flats.
You're unenthused about bagging.
Right, yeah. Big blind fish flats. 9 of hearts, 7 of diamonds, 4 of clubs. He checks. I jam. Big blind woke up with pocket 9s. Would you have gambled last hand to double or resign, or be resigned to 15 big blinds day 2 bag? And she has a video included, which, you know, basically we can see the gentleman she's talking about. He's happy about everything. He's rocking the mullet a little bit, you know. It maybe fits a description.
Looks like my grandfather.
What are you saying about people who have mullets?
I'm just saying they might give a little less action than, you know, they've already given all the action they can with the haircut. All right. Guapo. That's my read. If I see a mullet at the table, well, it depends, right? Yeah. Now, if it's somebody who was around in the 90s, this person doesn't fuck. He's not fucking around. He's not giving you any action, right? But if he's one of these goddamn Zoomers who's trying to bring 90s culture back now,
then you got to be careful.
This guy's out of line. Yeah. He's out of line. He's out of pocket. He's just trying really hard to wear the Yammer Yager in 2024. So you gotta be a little bit more careful with that guy. You know, he's gonna get in there. Anyway, the discussion that came from this was not the hand played at all. No one cared. No one cared.
Jam, don't jam. Who gives a shit?
Literally nobody cared whatsoever. But
here comes Kessler.
Yes,
here comes Kessler.
The irony of Kessler is hilarious because I don't know this for sure, but I've read a hand history or two by him, and I'm pretty sure he's called every person who's beat him in a pot a fish.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if he says fish exactly, but he does say they
Idiot.
suck. Yeah, idiot or something along those lines.
It's always like this idiot got all of his chips in with pocket nines. Like, well, what a fish.
And here's the thing,
Close
like,
that shit.
I could be totally wrong. Like, he may never use a derogatory term whatsoever towards his opponents.
But it seems that way.
But I have to tell you, my memory of reading his tweets instantly makes me believe that he has a negative connotation towards the people he's playing.
I don't
against.
think I've ever heard him say a positive thing about anybody. So,
Well, that's
like,
true.
It's basically just assumed at this point that he thinks everybody is an idiot.
That is true. So I do think that his point here is very valid, though. When you attach a video and basically, like, out him, like if it's a figurative player that nobody has any idea who it is, and they're never going to see this tweet.
Yeah.
Whatever. Who cares?
Right.
Like, this is harmless, right? Like, if we're playing online and nobody's going to know that it's you that they're talking about, this is all fine. It's when it becomes so specific that I think it becomes a bit targeted.
Yeah, I honestly don't think you should even video someone without asking them anyway. Like, I wouldn't want someone to put a video of me on the internet without at least being like, hey, is it okay if I film this, Like,
Yeah, she actually responded to that point later, where she's basically paid to vlog these stops that she goes to, and she says she always checks with the table.
Okay, well, that's
if somebody wants
that's
to
much
opt
more
out.
reasonable then. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's totally reasonable.
So yeah, I think all of that's reasonable, but like here's where I would draw the line. The second that I made the choice basically the second that I became a big enough platform myself where the person who's on the other end of this hand is very likely to read it, or somebody that knows them is likely to send it to them, I would be very careful about the language that I use.
Absolutely.
Similar to commentary.
Like, I read I think she had a response to it where she was like, fish is just a word that describes their experience level or something. That is such bullshit. That is complete horseshit.
Right.
Everybody knows fish means they suck at poker. Everybody refers to players as fish if they are bad at poker. If you call someone a fish, you're not saying, oh, this guy, it looks to be more inexperienced. When you say someone is a fish, you mean this player is bad. Like, everyone knows that.
Right. Like, we do use rec and fish interchangeably, of course.
I actually don't think they're completely interchangeable.
Well, I was about to go that way.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's more like the square rectangle thing.
Yeah.
Like, all fish are recs, but not all recs are fish.
100%. I think that
You're a tournament rec.
if she says big blind rec, who cares? Like,
Right.
It's completely neutral. They are a recreational player. She's just denoting this is not a known pro. This is not a player I recognize.
And he doesn't put a lot of time
And
in.
it's not derogatory at all to call someone a recreational poker player.
Rex now stands for recognize.
Oh yeah, respected.
Yeah.
If you say
Respected.
fish, as soon as you say the word fish, the connotation of that is you're saying this player is bad. And in particular, because she's posting it about a hand where she ended up losing, it comes across as, I lost a pot to a player that I think is bad, and I want to post about it because I want players to see that they are bad.
Right.
That's the vibe that this post gives to me. And I don't like her reasoning of fish is not an insult, because it clearly is.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, we wouldn't be having a conversation if everybody didn't interpret the term fish as being insulting.
Exactly.
And I just think the bigger conversation at hand is, what responsibility do we have as people who want to be heard to be a little bit more mindful of the audience that is listening to us? And that's like just the biggest take for me, because like, if this were just a random that I had no idea who they were and they said this, I would just shrug and I would be like, not a great look for that guy, but like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
He's probably a fish too, and like, whatever. I would care a little bit more if the video were attached, because it feels targeted, kind of. But again, it would just be like, okay, someone on the internet's going to slap him on the hand and tell him not to do this kind of thing, and he'll figure it out as we go.
Is
But
that someone going to be you?
no,
Yeah, no.
but like, as we build platforms and as we build a voice that carries to some degree, it becomes really important that you don't insult your actual audience, you know? Like, there's a good chance that that guy knows that you were filming at the table and he can't wait to see the content that comes from it. You know, vloggers figured this out really early.
180, huh?
Yeah.
Like, guy just says like top sets, like, oh man, like I just busted Tiffany just to get this video instead.
Right. Right.
It's like I just had a set, man. I mean, what do you want from me?
Right. And you can take it to the extremes, right? Like imagine that you're playing a WPT and you're recreational or you're actually a fish or whatever, and the cameras come by and you play a big pot versus a big pro. You know, you're there with Mike the Mouth Mattisau and the cameras catch you.
This is your epic gamer moment.
Yeah, this is the spot. You know it's going to make the coverage, right? Like you busted the mouth. It's definitely going to make the coverage. And then they cut to an interview of Mattisau and he just goes, that fucking fish, like he doesn't know what he's doing. And look, that's happened in the past. Like throughout the course of history, Helmuth being maybe the most notable.
Yeah,
this is commonplace.
This is a good segue.
But like, you know what you're getting into with Helmuth to a degree, right? Like if you, like,
I don't think that makes it excusable,
it
but
doesn't. It absolutely doesn't.
More so in the sense of like, if someone knows poker, like as like a recreational player, like fish, who gives a shit, right? People know Phil, and like you kind of like scam Phil in like a big pot, and like you're almost kind of like expecting him to do that.
That's because Phil is from then. Like from that time when that happened.
He's still doing the
and
shit
like
now.
he's not going to change. I mean, everybody knows him from what he
all
is.
right,
then.
but imagine if
I
we
do
changed
think.
fish to now like a derogatory racist term or something. And he was like, oh, Grandpa Phil.
Yeah.
We can't hold him to a higher
I think
standard.
the problem with it is, you know, like these players have been allowed to get away with this for a long time because they have a high profile. But everybody accepts that someone low profile doing this and just randomly insulting someone when they bust a tournament, it's bad for the game. When these high profile players do it, it's not. In fact, it's even worse for the game because they have a higher profile.
Right, it amplifies.
It's just we don't hold them accountable because for the most part, the people who actually run the tournaments don't have the balls to actually ban Phil Hellmuth or I'm not saying ban, but like even give him a 1-round penalty for saying he's going to burn down the Rio. Like no one has ever actually imposed that. And for as long as that continues, like this is the example they're setting.
I will say that I think I think that there's been a lot of like if Daniel were to do this, I think he would face a lot of scrutiny because his persona is not the same as Phil's.
It's not.
Well, he's got a big platform as well.
Yeah, exactly. And he's well, so does Phil, but like, yeah, Daniel has the biggest
What I'm
platform.
saying is Phil. I mean, Daniel versus Tiffany.
Oh, yes. But my larger point in hand is that I think Tiffany kind of like pointed to instances where this has happened in the past with men doing it or whatever, and she's not wrong.
Well,
but
I mean, have you ever heard Kessler put Hellmuth on blast?
not particularly. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he has.
But my point, my greater point is that Phil is a one-off in a lot of ways. Like, if Daniel were to do this, a lot of the community would put him on blast. And the reason why Phil is a one-off...
It'd be like, damn, bro, I didn't expect this from you.
Yeah, but
Daniel.
But even if you did expect it from him, it's like you expect more of him now. The reason why Phil gets away with it and the reason why Phil is a particular one-off is because he doesn't discriminate. It's not just recreationals that are fish. It's not men. It's not women. It's literally anyone who's ever beat him
Anyone
in a fucking
that has
hand.
Queen 10, anyone
And Kessler kind of the same. He doesn't discriminate. He literally spent days going after one of the biggest winners of all time online, saying, "Where's your Hendon mob, bro?"
Who then won a bunch
that?
of money that graph
Jans.
Oh, Jens Arons.
The Kessler graph tackle lore is amazing.
And then he comes out and wins 100K.
Yeah, and the guy's like, all right, you
Or
know
whatever it
what?
was.
Fuck this guy. I'm going to go play two events. I'm going to win them both, and you're never going to hear from me again. And that was just a great result. But like bringing this all the way back full circle.
I've never heard of you. What's your Hendon?
I don't necessarily think it's great that Phil is outside the circle of scrutiny, but I do understand that like at this point, and I've spoken to a lot of recreational players, they want to be berated. Like even Nikki was saying when she was on the big game, she was like, I can't wait to like bust Hellmuth in a pot so that I can get the Phil Hellmuth treatment.
She was so close to getting it. All she had to do was overbet the Queen 10.
The thing is, though, the only reason that situation has become what it is because ages back, when Hellmuth was calling people idiots from Northern Europe, there were no consequences, right? That like he was able to develop this persona because he did it over and over and over again.
Right,
and
but like quite literally, it was a different time.
No, right. I'm not saying that like we necessarily would have had the hindsight back then, but what I'm saying is like nowadays if anybody was to try to, build this persona of I'm the guy who always insults people, we wouldn't let that. We wouldn't let that like Martin Cabral, like people hate Martin Cabral because he tries to be the same thing. Right?
He acts like he's a piece of shit at the table. Of course, everybody hates him.
Yeah, of course, and rightly so. And I think the dynamic of Phil and Mattisau being these people who are like, getting insulted by them is like a kind of like a fun thing. I think we should look at that as those are exceptions that are unique cases, and for the most part, anybody else who has just a sort of reputation, a kind of a neutral reputation, different to one of those players, like you should be mindful of the language that you use, and it's really not hard to not be insulting towards people. It's not hard to not like make it obvious that you think someone's bad at poker. Like just for your own bottom line, for the game as a whole, it's not hard to be nice to people even when you're kind of mad because you lost a hand.
My outlook on this, and this is for like, it's just not for media, it's just for everybody, honestly, in poker, for pros. It's like, you want to be inviting and encouraging.
Absolutely.
Like, who cares what happens? Who cares about this? You just always want like your language to be inviting and encouraging.
100%.
Like at the table and everywhere.
And that's like the way you are at the table is why you get invites to games, and you get, you get put on TV tables and things like that, because you are inviting to people when you're playing. Like you have an attitude at the table that makes people want to sit down and play with you. And that's good for you. It's good for the game as a whole. And if players are the exact opposite of that, and they're unfriendly or they're just, disparaging recreational players, like there's just nothing good that can actually come from that.
To be fair, the
long-term.
bars need to hit a minimum of alcohol sold, so I think that's another reason too.
I hate you.
I do think all of that's true, but I think that it kind of like glosses over the fact that this word does exist in poker culture, and I also think that like humans as a whole are just going to have some level of conflict, especially in highly competitive environments. What I think we're speaking to here more so is when it's a public display of disrespect, right? Like when it's likely to be amplified either by your own channels or other distribution channels, when the person himself is likely to hear it. But like, I don't think there's anything wrong at all about walking past a group of guys who are telling hand histories and hearing them refer to player 2 as a fish.
Oh, of course.
Like that's just totally meaningless and innocuous.
We're all going to say it like privately, and it doesn't matter.
Even a guy storming off from the table saying like, you're such a fish whenever you beat him in a hand. Like, yeah, not ideal, but also like, look, you're going to take some lumps in this game. That's not going to be the thing that ushers a recreational out the door. But having somebody put you on blast to 25,000 followers and then have it get picked up by the media and ran with, and now all of a sudden you're the guy rocking the mullet with Top Set who 100,000 people were talking about day over day.
It's like, I just busted Tiffany before the tournament ended just to get this backlash.
And like that's actually a really great point to emphasize too, is that Tiffany's known, like he was probably very happy to have her at the table. I mean, hey, she's respected, and what was the other word she used?
Something about I don't know,
intimidating and plus respected or something.
No, it was just one of those generic like I'm new to the table, nobody.
Inactive plus respected. Sorry.
Inactive, yeah.
But
Inactive.
Like there's probably part of him that's just like this is a story. I remember the first time that I got to play with my very first pro ever. I don't even remember his name. That's how long ago it was. I think it was Paul. I believe his nickname was like .com. He used to dye his hair different colors. But basically, he wasn't even a real pro. He just got wealthy during the .com bubble.
Just a rich guy.
Yeah, he was just rich, and then got to play a bunch, which got him on TV a bunch in the early 2000s. And I was fucking not starstruck, but like intimidated.
Right.
It's like I'm 22 years old playing in Vegas for the first time, and I got fucking .com at my table, or whatever the hell his nickname was. And then shortly thereafter, that same trip, I played with Perry Friedman. This motherfucker has like a sock puppet on his hand, and he's doing all this weird shit. And I'm like, again, it's like you want to belong because you enjoy this game and this is something that you plan on dedicating a lot of time and energy into. The last thing I wanted was that fucking sock puppet to call me. Actually, I personally might have enjoyed the challenge, but like most people wouldn't want to, you know, consult the sock puppet and hear you're a fucking whale. So I guess like the greater point, and this isn't like I'm not trying to pitchfork Tiffany. Like, look, we've all done this. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't know this from experience of having, you know, spoken too loosely on the mic or put out a tweet where I referenced somebody that I played a hand against, not realizing like, oh, they're going to read my Twitter and know that this hand is about them, kind of thing. So it's like I've run through many filters of I fucked up so you don't have to. But I do think like the conversation that came out of it was a good one. And it's really difficult to put up much of a fight when it's so one-sided. You know, like not one person commented on the hand. Literally not one. It has like 120 comments, and it's just like top to bottom, why are you calling this guy a fish publicly, kind of thing. So I think like, you know,
no one cares about jamming the flop. They care about calling him a name.
I think it's the combination of using the word fish, the fact that she's an influencer, the video existing. You know, when you put all these different elements together, the vibe of the post is, hey, everybody, look at this guy who made a play that I thought was bad. And
here he is.
You know, yeah, right. And here's a picture or here's a video.
And maybe like not even bad, like maybe just like look how lucky he got kind of thing.
Sure, yeah, or whatever it is. But it's like you have to like take a step back and think context-wise, like what are all the different elements contributing to here? And the vibe of that post it's not a great vibe. And I know she didn't probably intend for anything like negative to really come from it, but you know, when you put those things together, it does feel a little bit like putting this guy on blast.
Yeah.
Right. Like the intent, I imagine, was like, did I play this hand wrong? But it came out as like, why are you being mean to this guy?
Yeah. Right.
You
know,
it's like
well, that's actually really a great point too, because she kind of referenced like
it was like hand check, but then here's this video of this guy that had a set.
Well, she kind of referenced later like I was saying that I played the hand or poorly. And it's like, I don't think that tone came across at all, right? Like, I think like, you know, at first we started to read the hand as to like whether or not you could do better with 15 blinds before the day ended. But I don't think like anybody's takeaway was like, wow, jammed the flop, huh? Well, that's one thing.
That's a choice.
That's a choice. That's one way to play it. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting discussion. Hopefully nothing too harmful will come from this.
I mean, it's poker Twitter. Like some bullshit's going to come from it.
Sure, but
we've already got REA out here complaining about woke liberals or something. And
well, that was the next thing I was going to say. Well, because it feels that way. It creates a tone where it's like it's over policing.
It's policing language, I guess, is what he's getting at.
Yeah, and it's such an innocuous term. Like you know, if the worst thing that somebody ever calls you in your lifetime is a fish, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand where he's coming from. And I get like the people that are in the camp of like, don't be so goddamn soft. It's like, yeah, that's fair. But you also don't have like a platform much larger than you kind of giving you a small targeted attack, even if it's a bit of a nudge.
Anything that you do publicly, like just I don't think there's any reason to do something that might cause someone seeing it to feel like, oh, I'm being insulted here. You know? Like It isn't necessary, like unless you're like really angry at somebody and you want to insult them, like just be careful that you're not accidentally insulting somebody and you usually be fine. Yeah,
I think that's pretty fair. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is a bit of an adjacent tangent, I guess. I don't know if any of you guys saw Marley's stories like the last day or so.
Don't think so.
So the basic rundown was she was talking about watching the bubble with the super high roller bowl, and she was saying like, oh, well, this is like very slow, of course, as it should be. It's a high stakes bubble. But it veered off into her kind of taking the stance of like, you know, I just don't understand how people would prefer to watch a bunch of recreationals where the money truly doesn't matter to them one bit, just splash around and play a lot of wild and crazy big pots. Like, hey, let's just jam all in pre for 200 big blinds each and see what happens. You know, basically she's referencing like streams like Hustler, maybe some of the high stakes poker stuff where it's a mostly recreational lineup. Like, why do people choose to want to watch that over watching like excellence play out? Where, you know, you're on a bubble of a really high stakes tournament. Everybody remaining is really high level, including the recreationals. Why are we choosing the circus over this mastery? And I thought it was like kind of an interesting topic to breach, because it's not inherently obvious to me, right? I think a lot of people just default to, well, it's the money factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can just win a lot of money playing in these live Hustler streams, et cetera, et cetera. But you can win a lot of money playing a high roller.
Right.
You know, you can win a lot of money if you're skilled at tournaments. So
I think it's. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No.
I think it's that it's more to what's in their environment.
What do you
Like,
mean?
If you're an MTT player and you take MTT seriously, you're going to want to watch the Triton stream. If
Sure,
you're
but
playing
most of the audience doesn't take poker seriously, period.
Exactly my point. So when you're playing cash and you just throw shit at the wall sometimes, then you're going to want to watch Hustler.
But why would MTT players who are also just like, you know, firing every now and again wanting to watch Hustler? Because I think that's the case. I think like your weekend warrior that just fires $400 tournaments here and there is still watching Hustler.
I mean, it's entertaining, so you're going to get that point.
But this is the thing,
And
though.
also
Like, I think what it speaks to is, why is it entertaining, right?
Right.
Because for me, it's not. Like, I have...
And for Marley, it's not. That's
Right.
her point.
Outside of the streams that you've been on, or somebody that I know has been on, I don't know if I've ever voluntarily watched a cash game stream, and that includes the ones that have a lot of high level players on them, because there's very little entertainment in it for me unless I either have an investment in it because I know somebody that's playing, or it's high level enough that I'm like, wow, I have to watch these guys play because they're the elite players. And those streams don't happen, really. The elite cash players are playing online. They're not like out in the streaming streets on Hustler, you know? So like, this stuff is not entertaining for me in the slightest, but clearly for a lot of people, it is. It's really like, they love it. And I don't like get, like, the disconnect is definitely there for me. So I'm kind of like curious about it.
You know why? To answer your question is because the Weekend Warrior is also playing low stakes cash. This is what their home game environment is more like tailored towards. Like, this is what they normally see.
I think you're dancing around why it's true, but
Okay.
you're putting an emphasis on like the arena itself, and I don't think that has anything to do with it.
So what do you think it is?
It's the disparity in talent, not the different arenas, right? Personally, like so she
that comes along with the arenas.
Sure, but like I think by and large, like a high stakes Triton cash game will also, and Guapo, you might know better than me, but I would think like a high stakes Triton cash game would also outperform an average high roller stream. Not entirely sure numbers wise, but like I would guess that's probably more
I'm
likely
not
than
sure.
not to be true.
I mean, I couldn't give you specifics, but yeah, this last 7-day, I guess, little carnival we had of Triton streams with cash did really, really well.
Right.
It outperformed, actually.
Exactly. So the surface answer that most people give is the money factor. And I think that has a little bit to do with it, but doesn't make a lot of sense because high stakes tournaments also have a massive money factor. And Marley made another example where she equated it to like those Mr. Beast videos or the man on the street videos where it's like, you know, for $100, would you kiss your brother or something like that? And or like answer this question and I'll give you $10,000, right? Like
For $1, name a woman.
right, yeah, like the wow factor of just like giving away free money, right? And she's like, I don't click on those videos either. Like you're just paying for my attention, and it's not entertaining to me. And I think she's right. Like it's very shallow, it's very surface level, right? But the reason why the average person, in my opinion, prefers to watch the cash streams, prefers to watch the man on the street just offer up free money to give away and all these other things is because they can put themselves there. They can actually see themselves in the position to benefit from all of this madness that is equating to free money.
Here's an alternative theory that I don't know how accurate this might be, but I almost wonder if for the lower stakes environments, that part of why they make a more entertaining stream for some people is just simply they are a little bit more visually stimulating in that there's always something going on. The action's fast. There's always chips being put into a pot. You're always like, the information is constantly updating on stream, and you're
people are always talking also.
Yeah, there's always interactions. Like their commentators are talking, players are talking. It's like more of a barrage of, if you have a short attention span, you're getting constant, stimulation. But if you're watching a high stakes tournament, there might be a hand that lasts 10, 15 minutes. There might be a situation where somebody is literally just tanking for 30 plus seconds and the image on the screen is not changing. And the commentators are talking, but they're not even saying that much because they don't want to break the tension. And so it's a totally different type of entertainment where you have to be very, very focused on it in order to get a lot of value from it. But it's almost like the cash game streams. You can kind of not be that focused and like dip in and out of it. And you're getting this kind of a certain sort of stimulation and a certain sort of entertainment that doesn't really require you to actually engage with it deeply. I wonder if it could be something like that.
I think that's true. Poker's not a very visual game on the surface to begin with, so anything that we can do to add bells and whistles certainly holds people's attention span a lot more. I also think that they can Monday morning quarterback it a lot easier than MTTs.
Yeah, that might be true.
Even in like the high stakes cash environment where everybody's like pretty close to being high level, there's still a lot more room for criticism because people can, again, they can put themselves there. They've played 100 big blind cash before. They've played with fish. They've played with good players. They can relate to the experience. They've never been on the bubble of a high stakes tournament.
And probably never will. And they can't see themselves there. Like they truly don't know what it's like. The closest that they can get to equate to this is like the main event bubble. And those streams do incredibly well, right? Like main event coverage from a streaming platform aspect does remarkably well for the same exact, like same thing. If Marley were, instead of talking about like 8 recreationals who are just shoving blind, inserted day 2 of the main event coverage, it's still the same apple to oranges comparison. There's no real comparison between a super high rollerball bubble and day 2 of the main event, right? So why does the general populace gravitate one way over the other? It's because they don't recognize the excellence. Or just the dollar amount to a degree, I think. Like, people don't really equate
10K main event's way smaller.
Well, I was saying people don't equate tournament chips to, like, dollars. You know, when you're playing, like, watching streams, watching high-stakes stuff, you're like, oh, these people are sitting with 200K.
But the main event final table crushes.
Yeah. But people know how extreme that is.
Same thing with a $250,000 buy-in.
I don't think it's the same. There's not that much, like, respect.
Yeah.
There's also something that's people have been seeing for the last, 40 years?
Like, the main is more relatable than a Triton, like a 250K.
WPT 3500 with 450,000 up top. Those streams do incredibly well. The replays, the highlights, they all do incredibly well.
They're on YouTube and people watch them on their own time. But WPT is also...
Everything we're talking about is on YouTube. Triton's on YouTube. The super high rollerball is on YouTube.
You're saying that doesn't do very well?
It's not that it doesn't do very well. By comparison, it's not going to do as well as the main event for sure. And the bigger point that I think Marley was trying to drill down on is that it's people who have to be able to at least be qualified to see the talent that they're watching that gravitate towards the bubble.
I think that's really important because if you look at other sports, like I watch a lot of soccer, for example. Like I would never watch a semi-professional
like a pickup
soccer game. Yeah,
same.
Because you can see the difference in the level of talent, and the appeal of watching sports in most cases is that you're watching high-level competition, right? With poker, and this is why I make the point about the visuals. With poker, the fact that player X, Y, or Z is 1,000 times better than this other recreational player is not visually evident.
Exactly.
Unless you know the strategy of what they're doing and why this play is punting and this play is not.
Precisely.
Right? You can't visually see.
It's why those
YouTube
shorts where somebody lays, like I think Two Card Confidence does this a lot, where he line checks the whole way through the hand.
Yeah.
And so you're watching a hand play out, which on the surface, as you're saying, visually does not allow you to know which of the players is skillful, if any. But when you lay the solver over the top and you see that player A nailed every single point of the decision tree, it's like, oh, now I see this moving, right? And I think you're exactly right. I think poker is the stone opposite of sports when it comes to the viewing experience. in sports, you want to watch high level play because you can visually see it play out in front of you.
Look how
right?
good LeBron is.
Yeah.
Like, there he is.
Yeah, like, and this is no slight, but like watch an NBA game and watch a WNBA game. Just the sheer shooting percentage is enough to make you marvel at the NBA and kind of like shrug at the WNBA.
Right.
It's like when they're shooting, 40+% from three as opposed to like 25%. That's a notable difference.
It's why I watch the Premier League, but I won't watch MLS. Like, you'd have to pay me to watch MLS.
I think that's a dig at the United States, but I'm not positive.
It absolutely is.
Okay. All right, we're on the same page.
Oh man, I need someone in here that at least knows how much MLS sucks.
Bro, MLS is fucking horrible.
Yeah, MLS
Well, like,
It's
sucks.
the
What do
absolute
you mean?
worst.
Florida got methy?
Methy.
Miami, they got methy,
Oh, okay.
and he's gonna take him to the cup.
Well, that's what
Wait,
kind of like what
Wait,
made.
are you making a joke by saying Methy, or are you just
Yeah.
saying his name wrong?
No, I'm making a joke.
Okay. So what's the joke? That he's from Florida now, so he does meth or something?
That works.
No, it's just like I'm pretty sure I stole it from the Pat McAfee show. It was like a common mispronunciation.
Okay.
Not common worldwide.
How do
but
you
like,
mispronounce a name that's literally phonetically pronounced Messi? Messi.
people like to do things, man.
But like, I guess when it comes to the NBA
Americans.
comparison and stuff, like that's what made Caitlin Clark so
riveting.
so cool to watch because
Right.
like really good for like hits from deep, very exciting kind of stuff. People's like, oh, you could tell how good this person is because of how they're performing.
Wait.
But with poker, you don't have that.
Right.
It's like I would see bet the flop too. Like what makes him so great?
Exactly. In the NBA, whenever you see a possession, you know that more often than not, it's going to result in a bucket. In the WNBA, like, you don't know. Like, I was watching the Olympics, and it was just like Brick City all day.
And then if you look
it's
at
not a pleasurable experience.
If you look at the poker stuff that does like go viral or whatever, it's always something that's like visually obvious as to why it's out.
Right.
It's out of the norm. It's like someone takes 5 deuce off and just like blasts it off and gets a fold, and now like it's very obvious. Like, oh, this guy took a bad hand and won a big pot. Like that is now the most. That's the most obvious like trivial way to look at like, oh, this is a skill that maybe this guy has, and so they draw
Right.
that connection.
Right.
I,
and-
I think it's more just like luck versus unluck kind of things. Like somebody wins a big pot with bad hand. It's like, oh wow, like they got really lucky. Like that's
Right.
cool.
Sports
Someone
go
gets
the
like
same. Sports
bad
go the
beat
same
with
way, though.
aces.
Sports go the same way. I think that the difference is in sports, you don't really, you don't hyper focus on the luck factor because you don't need it, right? Luck isn't what makes sports riveting to
Nobody
watch.
thinks anybody's lucky in sports to a degree.
No, that's not true at all. Outcomes of games are almost across the. Start betting some games, and you'll see exactly how much you.
It doesn't come off that way though. People just see like, oh wow, like that was a great play.
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
think-
talent.
I
Like
think-
that's
Yeah, yes,
skill.
yes,
He's
yes,
not
yes.
saying
They're
there
not saying,
isn't
oh
luck.
wow, the parody of the NFL was really something to watch this year.
He's, yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's
They're
saying
like-
that people don't acknowledge the luck factor in sports, not that there isn't a luck factor.
Well, it depends on which side of the outcome you're on.
Well, the casual fan.
Well,
which
somebody
is like,
got
Right, but
lucky.
I'm saying the casual fan. It depends on which side of the outcome you're on. Like you'll.
oh, that's true. The
when
bias,
you lose
yeah.
the game, it all comes down to luck. Like,
Right.
oh my God, we got so unlucky here. That call was so bad. You know what I mean? It all gets
Yeah, that's true.
reframed. You're right, though. When you win, it's skill, of course, and that's the way you want a product to be, right? Like you want a product to kind of blur those lines. Poker, I think, works in the exact opposite, where it's like showcasing the most skillful players because it's non-obvious does nothing but harm the viewing experience because it becomes slow, it becomes small. It becomes relatively boring, right? Like in a lot of these instances, being good means that you fold and you're patient.
Yeah.
You know?
And in particular, it also, in these high stakes tournaments, being good means you don't move a lot. Like you don't talk a lot.
Right.
You just kind of mostly sit there very stoically. You kind of stare people down.
You're also really cognizant of how money goes into the pot.
Yeah, like
You
you
know,
just
it's
are
not-
constantly paying attention. Like there's not a lot of visual stimulation.
like sometimes like the best thing you can do in a hand is like check back.
Right.
yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, like that was really cool to see.
That one's like, yeah,
what a
that was
riveting
like
check
such a
back
sick
there.
check
How
back,
did he
yeah.
find it?
How did
Yeah.
he find that river check? You know,
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and what you're seeing like in real time is like maybe the person that checked back has like the best hand. It's like, oh, I would have value bet for sure. This
sure.
guy sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to watch this anymore. I'd rather see the guy like heave money with aces and then get unlucky when someone has a better hand.
And I think another part of it too is people want to have someone to root for.
Right.
They when they watch sports, like watching sports as a neutral is totally different to having a team to root for.
Yep.
And in poker, it's really hard when everybody's trying to kind of act the same. Everybody's trying to like be robotic in their behaviors in high stakes, and everybody's playing largely the same, it's really hard to pick someone and be like, I want to root for this guy. You know, and this is why the stories when we come to the main event are really important, because they do give people someone to root for. But in the lower stakes environments, maybe it is a little bit easier for people to see a certain person and be like, I like this guy, like this guy's fun, or this guy plays a lot of hands, he's interesting to watch, or whatever. Like they gravitate to somebody a lot more easily, and now they have a rooting interest that keeps them interested.
Well, that's what makes Garrett cool and Helmuth not cool. You know, people like seeing Garrett win pots when he's playing.
Yeah, I mean, Helmuth is the heel that people root against, so
Right.
at least he serves a purpose in that regard.
Yeah,
but that's why he gets to call people fish and people laugh at it.
Right, it's a persona.
And to that point with Garrett too, it took a lot of volume to get that there, right? It's not like a one-off stream just made Garrett a hero, right? It was seeing him every Friday, week over week, month over month, year over year.
Yeah, you like related to the wins and the losses of like, I like seeing Garrett win.
It also just became evident that like he is the best player in that pool. So you know that you're watching a superstar, the same that you would in a sport game if you tune in. Like, you know when LeBron's on the court, you know like what it is that you showed up to
like
to
you
view.
see the same guy win hundreds of thousands of dollars every day. You're like, man, this guy's probably pretty good at poker.
And there's also a bunch of hands. Like, I think there was one where like he had like the second nuts and folded, and the other guy happened to have the nuts and stuff like that. There's like these moments of clearly being able to display like, oh, this guy looks like he's really good because he folded when the other guy had the best hand. You know?
Yeah. I think all that's a good point.
Like, it's easier to spot greatness in those examples versus others.
Correct.
You know, like someone having the best hand, or even like when, like, call it to example, like when Doug folded 10-7 against Phil, when Phil's like, I could have had the blocker or whatever, and Doug's like, all right, like, no, you don't. Like, he folds the second nuts, and Phil has Queen 10, and it's just like, okay, like, this is very clearly really good.
The irony is that, and this isn't taking anything away from Doug, but the irony there is it's not like it was a really good fold. It was just so bad by Helmuth.
Yeah.
Right.
But it doesn't come off that way.
Right.
Though.
Because that's not the lens through which the audience will see it, because Phil has already established himself as not being really bad. So he kind of gets a little bit of a defaulted kind of respect level, where when he does something that anybody with any knowledge understands is really terrible, it'll just get leveled off as like,
Yeah.
You didn't have to jam.
I wonder long term, like, whether there's anything we can actually do to make to create something about poker TV or poker entertainment that does make talent more visible, more evident. I just don't know. Like, on a production level, on a altering the terms of the game kind of level, like, is there something that can make poker into something that's a bit more like sports, where when someone's really good, you can see that they're really good?
I think it's like the Tony Romo effect, right? Like,
I don't know what that is.
Well, Tony Romo was he was a Pro Bowl quarterback for the Cowboys, but when he went into the booth, the way he really changed commentary was being able to anticipate and like read what was happening before it happened. So he could basically predict with a high degree of accuracy what plays were being ran, he'd see a defense and he would say, okay, like, this is a Tampa 2 defense. What you're going to see is the outside's going to become open. We're going to be looking for a one-on-one matchup here on the lower right-hand screen. And boom, that guy gets hit one-on-one down the sidelines, and everybody's like, oh, Tony Romo, he's a genius. So it's like, we actually have the availability to do that because we can weigh these decisions versus solve our outputs. But the problem is two things. One, you need a very qualified voice in the booth.
You can't cut the solvers midstream too. Like, you can't draw on the little.
Well, I mean, you could. You could do anything in production. We just don't do things yet, right?
Yeah, you can.
I mean, you could do plenty of things. There could be like a digital overlay of the solve actually on the table.
I think there's a lot of scope for some kind of a production somewhere to do a thing where, like, you're showing like Wizard AI in real time.
Yeah.
In the middle of a hand, and then you can see a guy find the right play.
Right. Did you ever watch the movie AlphaGo?
That documentary about the AI that plays Go?
Yes.
Yeah. I did.
All of the stream so the way that they distribute these matches is well-respected individuals within and I could be wrong, maybe there's one outlet, but the way I interpret it from the movie is everybody who's well-respected in the Go industry that streams, similar to like a Botez in chess, a Nemo in chess, that type of stuff, they all fire up streams with just the digital feed of this match. and they are offering feedback in real time. So they're running sims in real time. They're defaulting to what proper play is. And at that point where AlphaGo found a 1 in 20,000 probability move, like it's an exciting moment for everybody who's doing the commentary, because like they just don't even have it on the board kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like an immediate outlier where it's like, whoa, that's fascinating. And the game is so goddamn slow that they have forever to analyze it.
Right.
I don't want to compare us to Go, because obviously Go's not exactly a thriving industry of broadcasting.
There's a lot of high stakes Go tournaments out there.
Right. But to the point that you're making, like that's very low tech, and they're already capable of doing it. It wouldn't be that difficult to integrate. Where it would be, what it circles back to is you disqualify tournament poker again, because we just don't have good real-time tools necessarily.
We almost do.
We're getting there.
We're gonna within a couple of years, I think we'll have the ability to put something up in real time in the middle of a hand on a screen.
And with cash, like
is,
it breaks
though.
with multi-way stuff too.
I don't know how good that is to have the call it answers on the screen while people are playing high stakes stuff.
When you say good, do you mean like good for the game? Do you mean
I don't think it's good for the game.
Sense?
I don't think it's good for the game or some people like involved in it too. Because then people start to make like public perceptions of are they good if they play like the solver or not.
Well, that's happening already, I think. Because like understand, we're talking about specific products. We're talking about like Triton products. We're talking about like Super High Roller Bowl.
You think those should, in a couple of years, should have like the solve and stuff like that?
Basically, what Hunt is making the suggestion is like it'd be nice to be able to display talent. Right. We're not trying to display talent on Hustler.
And I think, to be clear, I don't think it has to be like a deeply accurate version of the sim, right? I don't think you have to actually be doing what someone would do in retrospect if they were studying and trying to get their execution down. I think you could, if you just display something that in the minute of playing a hand is giving the audience at least some kind of insight. Yeah, kind of insight into like, oh, this player is playing well because he got this decision right, or it doesn't have to even be a sim. It can be something that in real time is showing the audience, is a player getting decisions right and wrong? Is it, they're like showing what
even just like an EV measurement, right?
Something like that.
Some sort of, because
it tells us this player is good or
it cancels out the outcome. Right now, the audience is just tuned in for the outcome, and the outcome's often unimpressive.
Right.
It just doesn't really matter. The only thing that becomes slightly more impressive is when the outcome is very luck driven, right? So it's like a wild 2-outer hits the river and a guy gets stacked. It's like that's the only thing that really intrigues it. That just doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't show skill either, because it just shows somebody getting unlucky or somebody getting lucky.
Well, that's what we're kind of saying.
I'm getting that.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I mean, I see where the difficulty lies. It's hard unless you're in house to know who's actually very, very good and very talented. Besides, like looking at someone's Hendon Mob and seeing what they've won. You've seen somebody win time and time again. Like you don't have to talk to people that are good in the industry to know who's good at tournament poker.
I mean, isn't this why we revere Shulman so much? Because he's serving that role largely. He's just doing it vocally instead of visually.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have a visual aid that he could defer to in real time.
And I also think that what tends to be the case about poker commentary is they tend to tiptoe around any time that
a spot's close.
Well, no, I think they tiptoe around any time that they don't like a play that somebody made, right? Like I think that we don't want to stray into calling people fish and everything, right? But I think that it's
full circle,
like right. So like Shulman's not afraid to be like, oh, this is such a sick bluff, like this, like he's like, oh, he found a low frequency thing. Like he gets excited when someone makes like a really good play. But all the commentators, Shulman included, when someone makes a play that is clearly a mistake, it's like people shy away from saying it. And I think they don't do this in sports. In sports, if someone makes an obvious mistake, like if I'm watching a soccer game and someone makes a mistake and leads to a goal, like if someone makes just like an obvious fuck up, they don't try to pretend it wasn't an obvious fuck up, right? And I feel like there's a way in poker commentary that we can say like, oh, I think that was a mistake. Like we can have an element of critiquing from the commentators without being like disparaging towards people. I think
it's a slippery slope though, right? I mean, when you have recreational players on stream, like
But we're not talking about the recreational players. We're talking about the high stakes tournaments.
No, I understand that, but you also get players that aren't high stake players. Like you're going to have the businessmen. You're going to have people that maybe don't want to have that kind of feedback.
To be fair, when we're talking about the high stakes tournaments, there's only 3, maybe 4 people that are in these boots that even have the.
That's what I was gonna say.
Even have the chops to even be able to say something.
We're still really early in the commentary game.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I prefer it this way over people speculating.
Yeah,
because I think prior to Schulman, there were a lot of people who confidently got in the booth and just shit on people having no fucking idea what they were talking about.
I think you guys are right, because I think like we don't want a Will Jaffe situation where he's confidently saying things that are just wrong.
I mean, there was another good example the other day in Seminole. Nick Seward's final table. It was just.
I haven't seen any of it.
Yeah, there was just. It's. Yeah, I think that.
Be nice, Connie.
No. I am gonna be nice. I just think that.
There's room for improvement.
There's room for improvement.
But not even that,
and nobody's like, you shouldn't be just
well, nobody has the background, right?
That's
like
the
they just jump in the booth and they're poker players. Like there was a lot of commentary over the summer where I don't want to name names because like I'm friendly with them, and also like it would be a conversation I'd rather have with them off air. But point being is that like I think they were very qualified. I think they did a great job, but also they led with such hubris and such certainty in every spot that it came off as criticism. Yeah. And I think that becomes a bit problematic because somebody who's a little bit more knowledgeable and a little bit further along in the learning curve is listening with a qualified ear and knows that like you shouldn't be so confident about that particular spot, this particular spot.
I wonder if maybe the issue is that in sports, when it comes to critiquing something, a commentator who's like a guy who used to be a pro or something, in a lot of cases, there's hundreds, if not thousands of people who would be qualified to make the same assertion that this is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
In poker, when you're dealing with stuff at the highest stakes, there might be a handful of people on the planet who are actually qualified to say that's a mistake, right? So it's just a very different kettle of fish, I guess.
I do think that comes back, though, full circle to how helpful it would be to have some sort of visual aid where it's not entirely necessary for a person to jump out on a limb and say like, yo, that's bad. You know, it's just kind of like, well, we have an idea here that maybe this is missing the mark a bit.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really difficult just in the way that looking at a model and seeing that something is good or bad in the model might not be the same in real life.
Right.
You know, like maybe the model has a big blind 3-bet that looks like this, but this person isn't that. So something that looks good in the machine isn't actually that great in the moment.
I think what you're mostly talking to, and this is a really valid point, is that models vary greatly.
They're very fragile.
From person to person, they vary greatly, and the fragility of them is incredibly sensitive.
So now saying, oh, this is good, it's like, oh, well, okay, like you locked the sim.
Right, with your parameters, it's good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you get 5x 3-bet or 4?
It's funny. I didn't expect to go down this path. I just happened to watch Marley's
Does the size you chose matter or not?
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about that
What
earlier.
was your global frequency?
We talked about that earlier this week, too. And I don't want to spend too much time on it as we get out of here. But I do think that this dovetails into that conversation where, to Matt's point, there are very few people who are even qualified to be able to point out what's good or bad or anything in between. Like, if we're using a real world example and we consider like, let's just by default say that like the sim is equivalent to LeBron, right? We're elementary kids when it comes to competing, like we as a populace are not in a place to get on the court with something that great and compete with it. So there's a big disparity between what the sim knows or what the sim is capable of. Let me rephrase it. What the sim is capable of and what we're capable of. Also what we're even capable of taking away. LeBron can only teach so much to a 12-year-old. It's like, buddy, you just have to grow and play and learn some shit on your own that I can later refine or help you refine, right? So I think that big discrepancy leads to a lot of common errors and maybe a lot of emphasis on details that don't matter quite as much as we'd like to believe them to. And we've seen waves of this, right? Like there was a point where everybody was just blocker obsessed. like super blocker obsessed, because we recognized that the sim would choose different frequencies or different actions altogether, suit dependent, blocker dependent, things of that nature. And people began to obsess over this little bit of minutia. But when you dig in a little bit further and you actually analyze things at their root, we recognize that the EV differences in a lot of these instances are very, very, very small. And the times where like something like a blocker would matter the absolute most are the times where ranges are so incredibly narrow that most of the money that was going to go into the pot has already gone in. Mm-hmm. So it's like the error that you can make here is already relatively small in accordance to pot share, but it could be pretty large in accordance to like how often you are fucking up this exact node in the tree, so to speak. And I think that, whenever we're talking about like how to make poker more digestible, more watchable, how to put skill on display, it's tough to put it inside those lines. It's tough to fit it into a box and say like, this is the way to play. You know what
I just occurred to me is maybe there's a way of doing stuff to highlight the kind of live poker aspects of the game more so than like the solver stuff. Like maybe we have players hooked up to heart rate monitors or something.
I think that's
we've
super
had that
cool.
before. We've actually had that before.
Oh,
Where?
really? Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Really?
I've seen little tests with it. I've seen like a heads up test where they had two players playing each other with heart rate monitors, but I haven't seen like a full table. But like heart rate monitors or like something that is like tracking someone's posture of like, oh, his posture moved this amount, like, oh,
eye movements maybe.
Yeah, like just shit like that. Like doesn't have to be the solver stuff. Like get the
live read specialist.
Take the
in there.
live read stuff. That's what everybody who's a casual observer thinks poker is anyway.
You're gonna fucking figure out who the psychopath is real quick when they're just fucking firing an all-in bluff on the river and just nothing,
nothing.
heartbeat,
But
nothing.
That's fucking awesome though. Like if I was on TV and I watched someone like firing off like a massive river bluff and his heart rate just doesn't change, I'm gonna be like, that guy is a fucking crusher. Like, that is something even I and everybody in this room, I'm sure, would recognize. Like, wow, that's cool.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we shifted away from these. I don't want to call them party tricks, but like they kind of are. They're parlor tricks to some degree, right? But you're right. They open up a whole other layer of the game that again is just not accessible through sheer visuals.
It's more like poker, the stereotype of what it is, versus poker, the science of what it is.
Whether you're talking about the art or the science, neither one of them are visually available to the audience, right? So adding any sort of aids that can highlight these and make them a visual representation of what's going on is incredible. Like that's why we believe so heavily in Poker Out Loud. It's not a visual representation, right? But it's an audio one.
And I was about to say, that would be a really cool idea to implement in Poker Out Loud. All you need is smartwatches. And then you can just get smartwatches.
Or like pulsometers. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a way to do it.
And then like
That's for sure.
And
Right.
then whoops already.
Right, yeah.
You can kind of like just record on everybody's phones as the heart monitor's going, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean,
There's something like
I don't
that.
know exactly the easiest way to do it, but there's for sure a way to do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's really cool. Like anything that lets you get like more inside baseball when it comes to what's actually happening on the table in that moment, I think is worth a lot. Man, imagine heart rate monitors on the bubble.
That would be dope.
Like that'd be so cool because you could just see like who truly fucking cares, and like with being able to like gather that data in some sort of capacity, I think like ranges will naturally just change.
Yeah.
Right. Like you could have some insight as to like how like as a viewer, I could just see that like seat 7's heart rate has been consistently 90 the whole time they've been on the bubble. I bet he's playing a lot fucking tighter than he's supposed to. You know, I bet I can anticipate that as a viewer, I'm not going to see this guy in action. He's really, really, really trying hard to cash.
This is how it's going to be from now on. We're going to have heart rate monitors every final table. Guapo, you got to get onto the Triton people to get the the heart rate monitors at every Triton. That's the way live poker is going to work now.
I like it.
I love it.
It's definitely a way to have extra info that's like, call it more visual than not. Like you see the thing go like moving in the corner. You see someone like flop a set, and then their heart rate goes up even more.
Yeah.
You see somebody like.
You're right. Like little, fast, quick visual cues.
That's why shorts do so well, man.
That's it. So I was gonna tie it earlier our conversation
like with content as a whole.
Exactly, like shorts and like long form YouTube videos. That's why everybody loves shorts. That's like when we're talking about like Hustler versus Triton. It's kind of just like shorts are just quick. They're digestible. They're fun.
That's true.
It's the same exact thing when it comes to like people's view on Hustler versus Triton.
Right, and even using those two examples, Hustler and Triton, when you're building a short from Hustler, you don't need any greater context.
Yeah.
You just show what happened. But if you're building a short from Triton, you're going to need the context of like, okay,
table, is it a bubble?
What event is it? What stage of the event is it?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like you have to feed so much more information to the viewer, and that becomes kind of tedious.
Yeah. Oh, go on.
No, it's just the issue to a degree with the streaming ways of going about it is very, very slow.
Right.
And there's so much information not at once, but like over a duration of time, you know, like the final table streams are like multiple hours on end.
Yeah.
It's like, who's going to sit here and watch all of it unless there's someone that's like extremely invested or knows what good strategy is and wants to see the best players play poker.
Yeah.
Who could also just do that on their own time and 2x speed.
But also with one good storyline, all of that changes. I watched the last stream of the Galfond challenge from start to finish.
Yeah.
Where it's like he wraps up $1 million comeback, and I'm literally watching to see when he'll take a knee.
I guess the storyline is hard with like high stakes poker tournaments because it's like
of course,
really rich people playing for money that probably won't change their lives at all.
Yeah, I wasn't implying by any stretch of the imagination that the average viewing experience was going to have a deeply entrenched storyline.
But that's what makes the main cool.
But it is what makes the main cool.
Like the main, everyone
it's
has a storyline.
what WPT does a great job with as well. You know, we get small doses of this kind of stuff. And I think that's at least a step in the right direction.
Bring back November 9 then for the main.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about this. We want it. We want it bad.
Bring back November 9, edit the final table so you're not watching every hand.
Yeah.
And then learn about the people that made the FT.
GG's in charge now, boys.
Yeah. Alex is in there.
GG's in charge.
You know,
Botez knows about
I don't think we can let this go off air without bringing something, full circle and call out a little irony.
Okay.
We got our good friend
I'm scared.
Alan Kessler.
No, this is good. I saw this
4 weeks ago.
Okay.
Not even exactly 4 weeks ago.
Okay, exactly 4 weeks ago. That's
ran up the 600 to around 100K, then lost this gem to the table fish after I 3-bet him all in pre, and he called off his stack. Okay. All right.
But there's no image of who the fish is.
Well,
Correct.
you see the fish's arm. And then if you just scroll down a little bit, you see a comment that says, I'm the table fish that you're referring to. And we got it all in on the turn, not pre. By the way, it's the Palo, but, when it comes down to it, he has a bigger following than both of to every platform this was put out on.
Yeah.
He has 60K followers.
Also to double back to things you just shouldn't do publicly. Don't lie about your hand.
Yeah.
Don't fucking lie about your hand when you have a public platform because you're getting called out. Don't fudge a single detail.
Yeah.
Because you're getting called out on it for sure.
True.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys as always for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We will be back tomorrow. I'm pretty sure at noon. There's a small likelihood that we have a game of Bellagio, in which case we'll be in the after hours time slot. But we're going to do something very special tomorrow.
What are we doing?
It's time for a user call-in show.
A user call-in?
Viewer call-in.
All right.
We're going to do a viewer call-in show.
Sounds like fun.
No run of show. You guys are going to dictate what we talk about, when we talk about it.
Wow.
Wow.
Don't worry. I have a plan.
All right.
It's going to be for members only.
Okay.
That way I know that you have our best interest in mind as well as the shows. So I'll post that link right before go time tomorrow. You'll be able to see it on the community page if you are a member. And we look forward to talking to some of you on Zoom tomorrow. So we'll see you guys all then.
Later, squad.
Peace.
Good idea.